conversation which we are for here today. Global trade is not just an economic term. It is the silent force shaping what we produce, what we consume, and how nations rise on the world stage. Trade policies, negotiations, and agreements may unfold behind closed doors, but their impact reaches each one of us in ways we often overlook. When a country negotiates its position, it is not merely bargaining, it is protecting livelihoods, securing opportunities, and shaping the future of millions. What a delight to begin this afternoon in the company of such thoughtful and aware minds in the Orange City. A warm welcome to all present here. I am Megha Pawar, delighted and privileged to welcome you all in the 7th edition of Orange City Literature Festival, organized by Raisoni Foundation. Today's world is more interconnected than ever. A negotiation at WTO, a tariff decision, or a trade agreement can influence farmers, entrepreneurs, industries, and everyday consumers. The truth is simple. When a nation understands what it stands for in global trade, it understands how to secure its future. So now, let's hear it for today's session. Inside Global Trade Talks, what India fights for and why it matters. This afternoon, we are honored to have with us Mr. Abhijit Das, one of India's most respected practitioners, scholars in international trade. With over 25 years of experience, including roles in India's trade policy making and international negotiations, he has led institutions such as the UNCTAD India Program and the Center for WTO Studies. His latest book, Strategies in GATT and WTO Negotiations, simplifies complex trade issues through real-life anecdotes and practical insights. Beyond his published work, he continues to advise governments and global bodies on trade, making him a trusted voice in India's economic strategy. We are also privileged to have Ms. Iti Khurana as the moderator for this session, a seasoned strategic marketer and communication specialist. With over 14 years of experience, she has worked with leading organizations such as Taj Hotel, HarperCollins, and Oxford University Press. Her expertise in brand strategy, publicity, and author relations, and impactful communications makes her an ideal moderator for a conversation that blends policy, strategy, and public engagement with clarity. As the topic is timely, layered, and vital to India's growth, this promises to be an insightful 40-minute dialogue followed by an audience interaction segment. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, let us hand over the session to our esteemed moderator. Over to you, ma'am.
I hope since we are less people, it would be good to have more interactive session so that we can get whatever maximum information from Abhijit. So Abhijit, I just wanted to start with the book. How did this idea came to write about this book, and especially strategies in WTO and GATT negotiations? And if you can just also share your experiences writing this book, how did the thought came into, and what was the process of writing this book?
Thank you, Iti. At the outset, I'm really grateful to the organizers. I started my journey in trade negotiations in the year 2000, and often I would hear that countries strategize. I tried to think, what does that mean? I never got a good answer. I tried to search libraries, talk to professors. There weren't a single book on strategies in trade negotiations from the perspective of developing countries. So that set my mind ticking that maybe there is a need for such a book. And that is the origin of the book. What the book does is it relies on my own personal experience in trade negotiations during 2000 till fairly recently. It also relies on first-hand accounts of many negotiators from India and other developing countries. The basic objective is to discern strategy. ये कहीं पता नहीं चलेगा कि कोई नहीं कहेगा मैं यह strategy use कर रहा हूँ, वो कभी नहीं होगा. One has to discern strategy, identify what was attempted, and based on actual practical experience of the negotiating table, this book emerged.
Great. So, according to you, what trade negotiations are? If you could just explain this to audience, I think that would be better for everybody to understand कि हम इतनी बातें करते हैं trade negotiation, WTO, GATT, developing countries. So actually में ये होता क्या है? If you can just put some highlight on that, that would.
मैं इसको historical perspective से बतलाने की कोशिश करता हूँ. All of us are aware of East India Company.
Yes.
इनफैक्ट एक सेशन में यहाँ पर गुरचरण दास बात कर रहे थे ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी की और ट्रेड की जो अहम इशू है, ईच कंट्री वांट्स टू फॉर्मुलेट रूल्स which will create its supremacy, its dominance over other countries for variety of purposes. Number one, जो मैं goods services produce कर सकता हूँ उसको मैं दूसरे देशों के बाजार में बेच सकूँ. दूसरे देशों में जो raw materials हैं, natural resources हैं, उसको मैं कम prices पे खरीद सकूँ. मैं और लोगों के competition को कम कर सकूँ. And if possible, can I preempt competition? So negotiations for trade rules are for pursuing these objectives by countries. What we are seeing in the current scenario today is trade negotiations are no longer only about trade. What we are seeing in the US context of President Trump, it is to use trade negotiations to achieve non-trade, even political objectives. But at the crux of trade negotiations, it is very simple. How do I ensure my economic well-being by creating avenues for my exports and at the same time reducing competition, eliminating competition, and if possible, preempting competition from other countries. और trade negotiations के दो main platforms हैं. One platform is the World Trade Organization, जिसमें अभी 166 countries हैं. They sit around the table to come to a consensus for new rules. दूसरा प्लेटफॉर्म होता है जिसको हम लोग फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट नेगोशिएशंस कहते हैं, जिसमें 2-3 देश आपस में बैठकर रूल्स तय करते हैं. So these are the two platforms, but the objective of both the platforms is identical.
Very well explained. I think in a layman's language आपने इतने अच्छे से बताया. I'm sure everybody would have understood. Great answer. So कुछ इसके लिए कोई specific studies are required to form these organizations, or is there any rules and regulation which one has to follow these practices, or what is your take on that?
जब वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 खत्म हो रहा था तब एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट डॉक्यूमेंट पर अमेरिका और इंग्लैंड में सहमति बनी. दैट इज कॉल्ड द अटलांटिक चार्टर. Pursuant to the Atlantic Charter, after the Second World War ended, 3 institutions were contemplated. These are commonly called Bretton Woods institutions, जिसके तहत वर्ल्ड बैंक बना, IMF बना, और एक और इंस्टीट्यूशन बनना था जिसका नाम था इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, उसके निगोशिएशंस के लिए करीब 25-27 देश आए. इंडिया वॉज ऑल्सो देयर, US, फ्रांस, यूनाइटेड किंगडम, पाकिस्तान, जर्मनी, फ्यू अदर्स. उन लोगों ने कुछ रूल्स तय किए कि इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड जब होगा आपस में देशों के बीच में, तब क्या रूल्स फॉलो किए जाएंगे. दोज रूल्स कॉन्स्टिट्यूटेड समथिंग कॉल्ड GATT, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. And the rules under GATT were applicable for what we called merchandise trade, trade in goods, जैसे ये घड़ी हुई, ये किताब हुआ, ये बॉटल मिनरल वाटर हुआ, ये कोट हुआ. As time progressed, जो आज के डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज हैं, उनके एरियाज ऑफ इम्पोर्टेंस शिफ्ट कर गए गुड्स ट्रेड से. दे शिफ्टेड टू सर्विसेज ट्रेड, जैसे बैंकिंग हुआ, फाइनेंस हुआ, एविएशन हुआ, एंटरटेनमेंट हुआ. और एक और एरिया जहाँ पे उनका काफ़ी डोमिनेंस था, इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी राइट. तो गैट में यह प्रयास किया गया 1986 ऑनवर्ड कि नए रूल्स बनाए जाएं टू कवर दीज एरियाज ऑफ एमर्जिंग इंपॉर्टेंस फॉर डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज. वो निगोशिएशंस चले 1986 से 1993 तक. Outcome of that negotiation was something called the World Trade Organization, which now has detailed rules on trade in goods, trade in services, intellectual property right. आज के ज़माने में डिजिटल इकोनॉमी बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है. गूगल, फेसबुक, अमेज़ॉन, लिंक्डइन, जो भी कहिए, ये सब डिजिटल इकोनॉमी का पार्ट आता है. यहाँ पे किसका प्रभुत्व है? डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज़. सो अब यह कोशिश की जा रही है कि WTO में इस एरिया में भी रूल्स बनाए जाएं. और जो रूल्स बनते हैं ट्रेड में, इन रूल्स का ऑब्जेक्टिव, एक जो इंपॉर्टेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव रहता है, जो फर्स्ट मूवर्स हैं किसी भी एरिया में, फर्स्ट मूवर्स कहाँ होंगे? डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज में. उनके एडवांटेज को कैसे प्रिजर्व करें, और जो लोग फर्स्ट मूवर्स नहीं हैं, जो लोग ऐसे पॉलिसीज बनाना चाहते हैं जिससे कि वो फर्स्ट मूवर्स के पास आ जाएं, उन लोग को कैसे प्रिवेंट किया जाए. तो अभी के दौर में यह एक बहुत ही इम्पॉर्टेंट डेवलपमेंट चल रहा है, रूल्स ऑन डिजिटल इकोनॉमी, जिसमें अमेरिका बहुत कोशिश कर रहा है. इंडिया इसको रेजिस्ट कर रहा है, क्योंकि जब ये रूल्स बन गए इस एरिया में, दैट विल रियली कंस्ट्रेंट अस फ्रॉम इम्प्लीमेंटिंग पॉलिसीज टू extract benefits from digital economy.
I think that was my next question. You partly answered. So because we keep hearing about developing countries. So if we talk about USA, if we talk about European countries, where do you see India getting into, and are we on a right track, or are we far behind, or are we matching up to their expectations so that we can also become into that developing or developed country per se?
Okay. What we need to remember is, on most issues, there is a conflict in what the developed countries want and what a country like India wants. Developed country का objective simple है. Developing countries को ऐसी policies नहीं implement करने दो जिससे कि वो बढ़ सकते हैं. India as a developing country, हमारा क्या उद्देश्य है? हमारे पास एल्बो रूम होना चाहिए टू इम्प्लीमेंट पॉलिसीज टू कैच अप विथ द डेवलप्ड वर्ल्ड. ये एक बहुत ही फंडामेंटल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, और ये कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रिफ्लेक्ट होता है जो न्यूज़पेपर हेडलाइंस आप लोग पढ़ते होंगे. इंडिया इज़ अ ब्लॉकर, इंडिया इज़ अ बैड बॉय, इंडिया इज़ अ नेसेयर, इंडिया कभी बात नहीं मानता है. ये सब बिल्कुल सही है. इंडिया नेसेयर है, इंडिया बात नहीं मानता है, लेकिन इंडिया बैड बॉय नहीं है. फॉर द वेरी सिंपल रीज़न, किन चीज़ों के लिए इंडिया लड़ाई करती है ट्रेड निगोशिएशंस में? सबसे पहले है टू प्रोटेक्ट आवर फार्म सेक्टर, दूसरा है फूड सिक्योरिटी, तीसरा है जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर है, क्या उसमें हम लोग और एम्प्लॉयमेंट क्रिएट कर सकते हैं? There is no doubt that we are not very competitive. Absolutely no denying that. But does that mean that we let our industry die? If we let our industry die and do what the developed countries say and we let them frame the trade rules according to their interest, consumers in India will benefit, but our manufacturing base will finish. So, ये सब खींचातानी चलती रहती है. To a large extent, the developed countries have always prevailed in trade negotiations, क्योंकि negotiating table पे there is a huge asymmetry in political and economic power. आज ट्रंप का दहशत क्यों है पूरे दुनिया में? वेरी सिंपल. जो छोटे देश हैं, मैं इंडिया की बात नहीं कर रहा हूं, जो छोटे देश हैं उनकी इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट तभी होगी यदि वो विश्व के बाजार में बेच पाएंगे. और सबसे बड़ा बाजार कौन सा है? अमेरिका का है. यदि अमेरिका कुछ देशों से अपने इंपोर्ट्स बंद कर देता है, अमेरिका को उतना बुरा प्रभाव नहीं पड़ेगा, लेकिन जिन देश के एक्सपोर्ट्स बंद हो जाएंगे उनकी इकॉनमी तहस नहस हो जाएगी. तो इस चीज को ट्रेड नेगोशिएशंस में डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज लेवरेज करते हैं. एज डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज क्या रिस्पॉन्स रहता है? ऑफन वी आर प्रे or victims of what the developed countries do. We have to inevitably, in most cases, fall in line. But there are rare instances when developing countries have got the better of the developed world. And my book really tries to capture some of those episodes where India was at the forefront, where we got the better of the developed world, and the book tries to examine ये कैसे हुआ, हम लोगों ने क्या स्ट्रैटेजीज फॉलो किए जिससे कि हम लोग अमेरिका को, यूरोपियन यूनियन को, जापान को पीछे रख पाए. तो टू आंसर योर क्वेश्चन इन वेरी ब्रीफ टर्म्स, successes for developing countries are few and far between, but not unheard of. But those successes provide lessons for the future, and that is what is contained in my book.
So since you have talked about your book, why one should buy and read your book. So if you can just give, let's say, top 5 or top 3 crux, which will be easy for audience to understand कि भाई ये क्यों खरीदना चाहिए.
बहुत ही अच्छा सवाल है. जो आप लोग न्यूज़पेपर हेडलाइंस पढ़ते हैं और जो एक्चुअल रियलिटी है उसमें बहुत फर्क है. इस चीज़ को मैंने अपने किताब के माध्यम से एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश की है. जो न्यूज़पेपर हेडलाइंस रहते हैं, मीडिया हेडलाइंस रहते हैं, मोस्ट ऑफ इट इज़ बेस्ड ऑन नैरेटिव्स क्रिएटेड बाय द डेवलप्ड वर्ल्ड. हम लोग अपने तरफ से अपने पक्ष को रखने में उतने कामयाब नहीं हुए हैं. तो हम लोग का पक्ष क्या है अलग अलग मुद्दों पे, वह इस किताब में उसका डिस्कशन है. तो ये ज़रूर एक रीज़न है. सेकंड रीज़न है कि आगे जो होने वाला है ट्रेड नेगोशिएशंस में, हाउ टू मेक सेंस ऑफ व्हाट इज़ लाइकली टू हैपन. You can get a good inkling of it from my book. And third reason is, even if you have no interest in economics, even if you have no background in law, I have background in neither. But if you have some interest in how a small country like England managed to rule over us for 200 years by leveraging its economic power, you will appreciate that the same thing is happening today. The arena has shifted from battlefields to the negotiating table. और जो battlefield में जिस उद्देश्य से लड़ाई की जाती थी, वही उद्देश्य ट्रेड नेगोशिएशंस के थ्रू डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज परस्यू कर रहे हैं. उसका जिक्र किताब में है। और मैंने कोशिश की है कि काफ़ी टेक्निकल चीज़ों को सिंप्लीफाई करके।
आई वाज सपोज्ड टू आस्क कि इसमें कितना डेटा है और कितना आपका रिसर्च वर्क है, सो दैट वन कैन रिलेट ऑल्सो, इफ यू कैन जस्ट ऑल्सो।
इसमें ऐसा है कि बहुत पूरे किताब में टेबल्स नहीं हैं,
गुड।
एक भी ग्राफ नहीं है। करीब 100 कहानियां हैं। कुछ कहानियां चंद वाक्यों की हैं, कुछ कहानियां एक आध पन्नों के हैं। उनके माध्यम से मैंने यह कोशिश की है कि जो कॉम्प्लेक्सिटीज़ है निगोशिएशंस का, उसको सामने लाया जाए। जो कॉम्प्लेक्सिटीज़ हैं लीगल लैंग्वेज का अग्रीमेंट्स के बारे में, उसको सिंप्लीफाई करके एक्सप्लेन किया जाए। और इसमें बहुत रिसर्च गया है। इट टुक मी लिटरली 7 years फ्रॉम द डे आई स्टार्टेड राइटिंग टू डे द बुक गॉट रिलीज्ड। सो और इसमें यह है कि करीब मैंने 50-60 निगोशिएटर्स को इंटरव्यू किया, तो उनके भी पर्सपेक्टिव्स इसमें आए हुए हैं। और कुछ इंटरव्यूज़ इतने फ्रैंक हैं कि यदि मैं नाम रिवील करता, आई वुड हैव गॉट सूड, सो आई हैव हैड टू डेलिबरेटली कीप साइलेंट। वो जो कहानी है न जयचंद और मीर जाफ़र की, यह न सोचें कि वो पुरानी कहानी है। यह कहानी आज के निगोशिएटिंग रूम में इंडिया में अभी तक चल रहा है, जिसका जिक्र मैंने अपने किताब में किया है, बिना नाम लिए हुए ऑफ कोर्स। सो द ट्रिक्स which were used century ago, they continue to be used even today.
Because when we talk about trades, when we talk about WTO, when we talk about GATT and all, वो usually it's a very niche subject. So आधे लोगों के तो दिमाग से, मतलब I am not an economic student or a law student, so मेरे को वो देख के वो हुआ लगता है कि भाई ये क्या है. So I think what you have said is it's written in a very non-academic manner, lucidly written, so that one can relate it to. And of course you have given the examples, you have talked about the people those who have met and interviewed also. So I think it would be a good read for a layman who is looking out for some information on, as you have explained in a very simplified manner, what these trade negotiations are and how these countries are involved. One last question, I think then we'll open it for the public. What is your overall assessment of India's position currently? Because we talked about, again, we've talked about the European countries, USA. So where do you think India stands? And of course, we have a good infrastructure. We are good with IT because people move abroad for various job opportunities and all. So do you think we are standing anywhere, or are we kind of in middle, and where we are trying to position ourselves with this?
Itti, before I answer your question, let me just jump back to the previous one. Once I finished the manuscript, I knew it wasn't an academic work. So I was very, very scared of sending it to OUP, which is renowned for academic work. But thanks to your previous organization that they agreed to publish such a book. Or coming to the question about India, हम लोग economically अभी strong हैं, उसमें कोई शक नहीं. The point is, will we continue to remain on a path of progress? और वो partly determine होगा हम लोग क्या choices exercise करते हैं trade negotiations में. और उसमें जो 2-3 चीज़ें बहुत clear हैं. Trade negotiations are actually about future. और उसको मैं उदाहरण देकर अभी एक्सप्लेन करता हूँ. नॉर्मली इंडिया हो या और डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज हो, इन ट्रेड नेगोशिएशंस वी फोकस ऑन प्रेजेंट गेन्स, कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग आवर फ्यूचर ऑप्शंस. और इसको मैं एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश करता हूँ. आप सबों को कम से कम किताब में पढ़े होंगे या पेरेंट्स ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स आप सबों ने सुना होगा कि 1960s में फूड क्राइसिस था देश में, ज़बरदस्त फूड क्राइसिस था. लिटरली अमेरिका से शिप आती थी गेहूं की और तब फूड डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होता था. उस सिचुएशन में हम लोग कंप्लीटली डिपेंडेंट थे इंपोर्ट्स पे। और निगोशिएशंस में एक जो इम्पोर्टेंट एरिया था गैट में, वो था कि आप किस हद तक कस्टम्स ड्यूटीज़ इम्पोज करना चाहते हैं। तो किसी ब्राइट पर्सन ने इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को कहा कि देखिए, क्या फ़ायदा है हाई कस्टम्स ड्यूटीज़ रख के, आप लोग कमिटमेंट दे दीजिए कि हम लोग राइस वीट पे कस्टम्स ड्यूटी ज़ीरो कर देंगे, इसके एवज़ में आपको कहीं और बेनिफिट मिल जाएगा। जो आप एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं उन प्रोडक्ट्स में कुछ देश अपने कस्टम्स ड्यूटी कम कर देंगे। उस समय के लिए ये बहुत रैशनल चॉइस था, बहुत सेंसिबल चॉइस था। सरकार ने यही किया। सरकार ने 70s में कस्टम्स ड्यूटी राइस एंड वीट को कह दिया कि हम लोग ज़ीरो पे रखेंगे, आगे कभी नहीं बढ़ाएंगे। बहुत बड़ा कंसेशन था, उस समय के लिए बिल्कुल सही था। अब आते हैं हम लोग लेट 80s 90s, हमारी एग्रीकल्चर प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ गई, प्रोडक्शन बढ़ गया, फूड में हम लोग सेल्फ सफिशिएंट हो गए। फिर जो ज़ीरो कस्टम्स ड्यूटी है, that started hurting us, or that had the potential to hurt us, क्योंकि जो विकसित देश हैं they give huge subsidies, वो subsidized imports अपने देश में आते, अपने farmers they would have got displaced from the market. So here we were in a situation जो rational choice, sensible choice था 70s में, that proved to be an utter failure in 1990s. So we had to undertake some negotiations which allowed us to raise customs tariffs. इसका जिक्र अब मैं आज के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में करना चाहता हूँ, डिजिटल इकोनॉमी के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में। डिजिटल इकोनॉमी में अभी रूल्स नहीं बने हैं, या जो भी रूल्स हैं बहुत प्रिलिमिनरी रूल्स हैं, उसका कोई खास नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट हम लोग पे नहीं होगा। लेकिन जो क्रक्स है इन नेगोशिएशंस का, क्रक्स इज ग्रैब फॉर डेटा। जिसके पास ज़्यादा डेटा होगा उसकी डिजिटल इकॉनमी ज़्यादा प्रॉस्पर करेगी, वो डिजिटल इकॉनमी से ज़्यादा इनकम कमाएंगे, ज़्यादा जॉब्स क्रिएट करेंगे। हमारे पास टेक्नोलॉजी की कमी है डिजिटल एरिया में, लेकिन वी आर वन ऑफ द लार्जेस्ट जनरेटर्स ऑफ डेटा, पर्टिकुलरली गवर्नमेंट डेटा। इस डेटा को यदि इंडियन गवर्नमेंट चाहे, इट कैन बी लेवरेज्ड फॉर मल्टीपल पर्पसेस, which will give us a huge benefit, it will give us a huge edge over the developed world. So what does the developed world want to do? What the developed world, particularly America, what they want is that if government shares government data with Indian entities, they must mandatorily share it with foreign entities as well. If this is done, then our digital prospects are gone forever. Similarly, what America wants is जो भी डिजिटल प्रोडक्ट्स हैं अमेरिका के, उसके खिलाफ आप डिस्क्रिमिनेट न करें, आप अपने डिजिटल प्रोडक्ट्स को आगे न बढ़ाएं। तो इन लाइंस पे रूल्स बनाने की कोशिश की जा रही है। कुछ लोग कह रहे हैं कि वेल वी मस्ट अग्री टू दीज रूल्स इन एक्सचेंज फॉर लेट अस से मोर वीज़ाज इन द डेवलप्ड कंट्री फॉर IT professionals. Very logical at this juncture, very sensible, but in the long term, why even long term, over the next 8-10 years, it will kill us the prospects of our digital economy in future. So the short point is, government has to go beyond current interests. It has to look at future requirements and accordingly take negotiating positions. And give me one more minute. Historically, our success in negotiations has been जब हम लोग और developing countries के साथ हाथ मिलाते हैं. Somehow we seem to have forgotten that lesson. पिछले कुछ वर्षों में we have knowingly, unknowingly found it better to fight our battles on our own, which really is not the way to get the best outcomes.
Great. So, in the interest of time, we will open it for Q&A. If audience has any questions, you're most welcome to ask. Yeah, please.
Sir, according to you, where is the present America-India deal stuck?
I wish I had an answer to that question. The deal is being negotiated behind huge confidentiality. So I really would not have an answer to that, but I can make an educated guess. Clearly what America wants from us may be much more than what we may be willing to concede ground. It could be in the area of agriculture, it could be in the area of digital economy, or an important area जिसकी मैंने बात नहीं की, that is intellectual property rights, where the objective of America is very clear, create rules such that Indian generic pharmaceutical industry gets destroyed over time. So it could be any of these reasons.
And how much elbow room do we have?
देखिए elbow room की जहां तक बात है, it's up to us. If we decide to bear some pains today in the form of saying, okay, because of our exports not being blocked in US in textile sector, which has created unemployment in Tirupur or in Maharashtra, we will bear the pain for some time, but we will protect our future prospects. If we adopt this line, then we have huge elbow room. But if we focus on the job losses today without realizing the possible adverse implications of concessions that we will make today, then we have no elbow room. So it depends on what are we focusing. If we are focusing on immediate gains, very little elbow room. But if you are focusing on future prospects, we have elbow room. Lekin, there's a saying in English, a bird in hand is better than two in bush. So we have to see what the government eventually does.
So one political question, I don't know if we should be discussing this or not, but between this government and earlier government, who do you think would have done really justice to this WTN?
Okay, a very difficult question to answer. I'll give you two instances. We had the Vajpayee government in 2000-2001. At that point in time, we had a commerce minister called Murasoli Maran. He stood alone, took on the world, and managed to succeed. In 2014, there was a grave risk that our scheme of minimum support price would get unraveled because of WTO rules. And there, from June 2014 till about November 2014, India stood out alone, fought the battle, not only externally, internally, to protect the minimum support price. So I would say different governments have shown huge courage in trade negotiations, and much of it really is rooted in this reality that rules are against us. We need to be cautious about future rules, and if possible, जो existing rules unfair हैं, उसको change करना है. This philosophy, I think, runs across governments.
Long-term process, as you said, we have to think in a longer run rather than just 1-2 साल का सोच के and then. So I think, yeah, that's sorry.
Yeah, good afternoon. So what do you think regarding the strategy of Trump increasing the tariffs? Was it logical, or did he do it just because he could do it?
You'll be surprised. जो ट्रम्प कर रहे हैं ना, बिल्कुल नया नहीं है. This strategy is a time-tested weapon in USA's negotiating arsenal. मैं इसका example देता हूँ. I mentioned that between 1986 to 1993-94, GATT में there were negotiations. One of the areas of negotiation was intellectual property rights. And in these negotiations, for 2.5 years, India and Brazil fought tooth and nail against US. Literally, they said that what US is wanting to do in the negotiations is not proper. US ने क्या किया? US imposed huge tariffs on exports of Brazil, and US threatened India that, well, your most important exports are textiles. We will impose high tariffs on your textiles. That would have adversely impacted our exports, that would have adversely impacted Brazil. What did the two countries do? They fell in line. Trump is following absolutely the same tactics. Countries are dependent on US for their exports, to varying degrees, of course. So if the US market is shut, their economic prospects diminish. So they may be willing to listen to what the US asks for. In the past, we listened to what the US was asking for. We have to see whether we will resist it. But Trump has managed to extract concessions from a large number of countries, those concessions which countries like Japan, South Korea, Indonesia, Vietnam, they were resisting for decades. So Trump's strategy so far, to my mind, has been highly successful as far as extracting concessions from other countries is concerned. But it has a price for the US consumer. So the balance will be, how long can Trump persist with this strategy? And the breaking point will come when the political cost on account of retail stores के shelves में जब goods कम होने लगेंगे, then Trump's strategy will start pinching him. That is why he wants to rush through the trade deals. That before the consumers start feeling the pain, compel countries to agree to what he wants. I hope that answers your question. WTO should have been absolutely involved in this, but there are two reasons why WTO is not involved. Number one, किसी देश की हिम्मत नहीं है WTO में अमेरिका के खिलाफ एक भी शब्द बोलने का. किसी में हिम्मत नहीं है. It's funded by the member countries, including America, but that is just a small part of it. The other reason why WTO is unable to take action is very interesting. WTO में there was a dispute settlement system जिसमें आप किसी देश के खिलाफ कंप्लेन करना है, saying that that country is not obeying trade rules. You could file a case. If you won the case, that country would have to make changes. If it failed to make changes, then you could take retaliatory action against that country. And guess what? America made this system dysfunctional in December 2019. Since this dispute settlement system became dysfunctional because of America, Trump is able to have his way without WTO being able to resist him. Having said that, countries, if they show the political will, they have cards in their pocket which can hurt America. किसी में हिम्मत नहीं है to use those cards. And that card is very simple, intellectual property rights. Even if 5 large countries tomorrow say, we will not respect the patents of US patent holders, America will come on its knees. किसी में हिम्मत नहीं है, unfortunately. Some country has to take the lead, which has not happened. Every country is scared of America at this juncture. That's an issue away from trade, directly not linked to trade. But that is something which scares America. True. Okay.
So I have one question regarding the changing aspects of what Trump actually talks about. He talks about one thing today, and by the time you are waking up again tomorrow, it's completely different. So that uncertainty that Trump is actually bringing to the world, we all understand, around 1991, 1992, जब ours was like still a closed economy. So around that time, we had some of the things that we had to go through, like opening up the economy and everything. But now that uncertainty that Trump is actually bringing to the world is actually making more chaotic situations for everybody to like, जैसे wildfire एक हो जाता है, तो we don't understand कि भाई यहाँ पे एक way है कि, or we just have to haphazardly run all the way around. So how is that, or could it be a strategy that
You're
Trump is-
absolutely right. It is a very well thought out strategy. Create unpredictability, uncertainty, so that businesses world over are not able to plan. And then use that uncertainty as a bargaining chip at the negotiating table.
So even at the cost of hurting their own industries, for example, the IT industry. So throwing tariffs left, right and center, and then imitating that particular aspect, kind of fear amongst even their own citizens, like, okay, kya hone wala hai, we don't know. So like I'm working in IT, and जैसे earlier there were like, if we are renewing a certain project, so it was like 1 year project. Now even companies are actually fearing like, okay, even if we should review it for let's say 1 month or even for a quarter, they are thinking like 10 times, okay, is that going to even sustainable or not?
Absolutely. 2 points here. One is leveraging, using uncertainty as a negotiating tool. And second is bear some short-term pains today for big long-term gains tomorrow. I think Trump is perhaps following that approach.
And like what, I know it's taking some more time, but like let's say when we are talking about trades, like whatever Trump says, it's affecting highly in our markets, the legal markets or our share market. So is there something that, let's say for someone who is navigating through the stock markets and everything, and we know that, okay, there is this AI bubble and everything, Nvidia fell down like 10-15% in the last, let's say 1 month or so. So how that is probably a way, or that bubble part, is that also maybe a part of strategy कि भाई you bloat the stock market in such a way कि आप उसको एकदम it just burst out of it, and then bonds part, that people should again trust the bonds and move away from the markets, flow the money into the bonds, so that they gain their economy running again. So something on that.
I have zero expertise in stock markets, number one. So I'm absolutely not in any position to respond to your question, except provide one input over here. If there is one thing which can change Trump's behavior, one is, of course, the pinch will the consumers face, and second is a dip in the US share market and bond market. So Trump is really scared of these two. But the impact on the Indian stock market, I'm sorry, I have absolutely no expertise in that area. I will not venture into it.
But yeah, that answers a lot of things. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
So what's your take on the trade with the country which are in the war, for example, Russia or Israel? Somewhere we are beneficial for that, but as a human community point of view, it is very bad for us. Somewhere, what's your take on that?
It's again a very difficult question. There are moral dimensions to it, but it has to be looked as overall part of our foreign policy, number one, and second is our own economic needs, which is what has compelled us to buy oil from Russia. But at the same time, whether similar compulsions exist for other countries at war, that I am a bit uncertain. I hope that answers your question.
Okay.
So I would recommend people to go and buy this book. This is available on Amazon. I doubt that the copies are here. It's not here, but you can get it on Amazon and you can get more details on the strategies.
Thank you, sir and ma'am, for an engaging and illuminating conversation on what truly happens inside global trade talks and why these decisions matter for India's economy, industries and future. Your discussion shed light on how negotiation strategies, trade priorities, and global alliances shape the lives of citizens far beyond policy rooms. Audience, I'm sure today's session has offered each one of you fresh clarity, deeper understanding of how global trade influences on everyday world, often in ways we rarely notice. A special thanks to Oxford University Press for supporting this session of the Orange City Literature Festival, and we are delighted to have LIC as our heritage partner. Before winding up, I would like to present one token of love to our esteemed guest, to Sir and Ma'am. Sir, please. A good round of applause. I would like to have one applause. Thank you. We appreciate your presence, audience. Do join us for our next enriching session, Holy Tirthankars, in the light of heartfulness with Purnama Ramakrishnan in conversation with Dr. Meena Rajesh. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this session. See you and happy wisdom.